So together with us, we have today Dan Chick, our own guy. Hey Dan,
Hello.
how you doing?
Good. I think your own guy, the only one in North America, right? As far as a regular?
Yeah, well, as far as regulars, this is a big subject, my friend. You start another subject, but anyway, let's not go there yet. Let's talk. You're gonna be our featured artist for this month. Tell us a bit about yourself. We know your name, that you are from North America. Tell us about you. It's like, where do you come from? What's your status, your background, etc.
Sure. Name is Dan Chick. Grew up near Toronto in Eastern Ontario, Canada. Moved around. Got transferred to the States when my dad got a new job and moved around a bit and ended up in Denver. I've got a bit of a background in applied physics and switched to being a full-time computer programmer. So that's kind of what I'm doing to pay the bills. Had a breakup like 15 plus years ago, 20 years ago, and needed something to fill my time. So I dived into model photography and then took a bit of a break from that 10 years ago, took a few years off. And when I started up doing photography again, I discovered light painting pretty hardcore and dove into that.
All right. What is light painting for you?
What is light painting? Well, so there's what is light painting, but there's what it is for me. For me,
This is for you,
you
for
know,
you. No, not
for me,
what in
sure.
general.
Not like other can of worms, but for
No,
me,
exactly.
um, yeah, I sit in front of a computer all day and push ones and zeros. So for me, light painting is a way to create some art and a way to connect with some people and have good artistic time with friends and to make new friends and to blow some minds with some really cool output. But recently, the last 2 years, it's also been an opportunity to travel the world, the US and the world, and make new friends and see old friends. So I
That's
think that's it in a nutshell.
all right. And you said that your main activity is not programmer, developer, or what exactly?
Sure, yeah, I've been doing back-end web programming for about 25 years now.
All right.
So I do a bit of everything, but a lot of back-end database design, programming.
Okay.
Before the social networks got really big, I built online communities for people, and yeah, just whatever it has to do. I mean, it's evolving so fast, you can't keep your finger on the pulse of everything,
Of course.
but that's my jam.
Do you also do anything with light painting professionally? Do you do some photo shoots or something like that? Because I have seen, I think, quite many photo shoots. I don't know if you do that commercially or something.
Sure. Well, light painting is a bit of a hard sell. You have to educate people first, then you have to convince them that they want it. But I do have a few, right? It's actually got a bit more traction in Europe than it does in the States. So I do have some photo booth setups that I do like on an annual basis. There's a local Burning Man group, and I shoot one of their parties every year. And I have been hired to do uh, a photo booth in conjunction with the still photos and also with the Light Monster video light painting software. We've done that a little bit. We don't get paid often, but we try to make it worth our while when we do.
All right. Okay, let's take it back to the basics. How and when did you start light painting?
I started light painting. Well, my roots for that were trying to do some in-camera double exposures way back in the day, 110 millimeter film, and it was yeah like this little camera that's the one of those flat
Yeah,
ones,
I
if you remember
remember this.
those.
Yeah.
And then they didn't really lend themselves very well to doing in-camera doubles. They didn't rewind partially, so I didn't. I was probably 10, so I wasn't doing anything right with the light, and the pictures came out horrible and comical. But that was the first time I was intrigued with the idea. After I quit doing model photography, I just kind of burned out, needed a break. When I decided I wanted to shoot again, I must have seen an article somewhere in passing on using flashlights in a long exposure, not to do what we typically call light painting these days, but to light a model scene just in kind of a different way. So maybe the shadows on someone's face go this way and the shadows on their body go this way. And I wanted to be able to create an image that just the light didn't make a lot of sense from typical studio stuff. So that's kind of where I started. And then I discovered there was a whole global community. It was kind of a small community in numbers, but it's really everywhere in the world at this point. And then I started to learn some new moves and went from there.
All right, that's good. And do you usually work by yourself, or do you have like a team, or you go with a group of people, or how? It's like I've seen so many people in so many different variations of this thing, which is really interesting.
Sure. Well, you asked my status earlier, where I think that was kind of an invitation to introduce my fiancée, Nancy. And so, we shoot together sometimes. I got her into body painting, and now she's a really accomplished body painter. So sometimes we'll team up and I'll paint somebody or she'll paint somebody. The actual photographing and the light painting is usually on me, but Nancy loves to wave the tubes and do some stuff as well. She likes simpler shots. I like more complicated, complex shots, moving parts. That's part of the satisfaction I get. We do have a growing scene in Colorado. The second article I wrote for the blog was about how hard it was to start a scene here. And for 3 years, it was just me. And I'd have people who would come and shoot with me once or twice. From a photography side, some people who would come and model on a more regular basis or even team up with some ideas. But as far as light painters go, it was really an empty place to be here. We do have a group now. We've got Paul Burns down in Colorado Springs. He was the first person I'd met who actually had some traction with light painting. And then I guess it was like a year and a half, almost 2 years later, Russell Klimas also in the Colorado Springs area. He's been doing a lot of stuff with tubes and fire and drones. So he's joined our group. It's not like an official group, but we do shoot together sometimes, great ideas.
Stuff, yeah.
And Margarita Rubiera up in Boulder, we discovered her recently, and it turns out she's been light painting since 2003. On and off, and she actually had seen my name online, but didn't know I was, 30 minutes away.
That's
So
good. That's good.
now I think the four of us are probably the core of Colorado, but we do have other people that we've got a 300-person group, which doesn't mean we get 300 people out, but there's a lot of, we could do a shoot and have models and photographers,
Right.
but we don't have a team that is like Aurora Movement, for instance, where we've got 3 core light painters. We all kind of do our own things, but we also team up sometimes.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. All right. And what kind of tools are you using in your works?
Well, I
Usually.
started with just flashlights, like I'd said, and then I saw Patrick Rochon's video that he put out, like 8 hours worth of video ages ago, and that encouraged me to build some of my own tools using metallic pipe cleaners or fuzzy pipe cleaners
You're
and
talking about
various
that tutorial what Patrick released at some point early on or something.
on Learnify or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
When I decided to get into light painting, I learned about that very quickly and decided I wasn't going to learn any better way than that. So, I bought the video, did the thing, got some ideas, started making my own tools. And then we all know Universal Connector now. We know there's some others in Europe that are kind of similar. I actually built one of my own and called it a Universal Connector. It was nowhere near as good as the other ones. I took 2 pill bottles and screwed the lids together and dropped the flashlight through one, attached the other attachments. We had some really cool ones for making fire effects and water effects. So I've gone through all that stuff. Then I went through the light painting brushes and basically have everything that they own. Got some of Patrick Rochon's light blades. But the stuff that I'm kind of digging these days is, I mentioned my background in applied physics, so I love everything that just modifies light. So my new favorite tools, my favorite conventional tool may be the black fiber optic, but then I love using prisms, and I discovered the fractal filters a couple years ago, and it took a while to get my hands on them, but I think they've sorted some of that stuff out after a very successful Kickstarter. And also we've got this here, which is kaleidoscope.
That looks
And
cool.
you can twist it while the shot's open and get some interesting effects. You can take a kaleidoscope and put a prism on the end. So
Did you do that yourself or what?
So I wasn't the first person to use kaleidoscopes in light painting, although I hadn't seen anybody else do it when I started doing it. I learned that Alexander Greznolov, I'm hoping I'm saying that right, he has done FDU4 on Instagram.
there is, yeah, Alexander Grigilov or something like that.
Yeah,
But there is
he's
many people way before that. It's like TCB or like the
sure,
other
which
guy. But yeah, all right.
and somehow I had not seen Dana's tutorial or
Mm.
sample images until I think just last week even. But so I made one. I don't have that one with me here. But then Johnny Griffin came to visit, and the thing is, a lot of us we've got jobs, we've got to do our thing. Johnny's retired, and he's amazing at making tools. He's kind of a mad scientist of light painting. And so the next thing I know, this box shows up at my house, and it's got five different variations. It's got three-sided, four-sided, five, six, and eight.
Awesome.
And so this one here is a three-sided. And this is
Awesome.
actually the second round. We've got front-facing mirrors in here, not just store-bought cheap mirrors. This one here is the craziest one. It's an eight-sided, and look at that, right? And then you can go this way too.
Oh,
You can again spin them. But so he actually is going to be releasing a tutorial soon on how to make your own.
cool.
So I had made some. He took them, made them way better. We came up with the name Rabbit Holes because kind of like Alice in Wonderland going down the rabbit hole. But yeah, so those are my go-to tools at this point.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And since you came into, we started talking about older inspirational people and stuff like that. What would you name three of your favorite artists in light painting in general?
Sure. Well, I think I've got a couple that kind of helped get me started. And the one name that people don't seem to talk about too much was Aurora Crowley. And he kind of teamed up with Patrick and Eric, I think, in Montreal. That's where he got introduced to light painting. He's out of New York City, I think, maybe Brooklyn. And I don't know that he's doing a whole lot with light painting these days. But I came from a model background, and a lot of people were shooting, steel wool or doing orbs. But when I started doing this 5 years ago, there were a few people doing model photography with light painting, but there weren't a lot of people where I looked at their work and said, wow, I want to do that.
Mm.
Aurora was one of those people. And he didn't do exclusively in camera. Some of his stuff was in camera, but I think some of his stuff involves some post. But it was definitely a catalyst for me doing some stuff. So early on, I definitely took a lot from that and some of Patrick's older work where he was doing some really trippy, creepy, cool, magical stuff with models. He's doing more kata stuff now and like environmental pieces.
Mm.
But early on, his model photography inspired me. Recently, I'd say the top three people that stand out, Tim Gamble with his 365 project, when we met him in Belgium, and he got to meet a group of light painters outside of England for the first time, and he just couldn't believe that people were taking inspiration from his project. And we're all going, "Oh my God, Tim, you are doing such amazing stuff!" But I love what he's doing because he engineers pictures, he plans them, he executes them so well. I love the colors that Pala brings to things. Everyone's using conventional RGB. He's cracking out the purples and the off greens, and between his compositions and his colors and the floating head and chanting his name in a Belgian cave. I love the work he's doing. And the last person I want to mention is Kim Van Coles. She's been doing some really cool, like triple exposure in camera stuff, some bathtub stuff, and she's just such a cool person to hang out with too. And if you haven't seen some of her old music videos, you're not prepared for those. Look those up.
They're all really awesome artists and people. It was like really great to meet them myself also. Yeah, all right. What is your favorite own artwork? What would you say that is your favorite one?
So, yeah, wow. After 5 years, to pick a single picture that was my favorite, I've got, I've got to say, I guess the piece that we did for the International Day of Light, I coordinated a mosaic piece of Van
Ah,
Gogh's
all
The
right,
Starry Night.
all right.
And so basically I wrote some software that chopped a picture up into a grid and people could come and request a tile, and it would assign tiles out to them. They'd light paint them, upload them to the site again, and it would put it all back together. And so we had 456 tiles. We had 50 artists, 20 countries represented, and we ended up creating a really big piece. Global collaboration, got featured on Petapixel, and I gotta say that one probably stands out the most from a collaborative standpoint. I do have a personal piece I like, which was the first time that Nancy shot with me, not as a model, but as an assistant. And we shot up on the roof of a building near downtown Denver. 4th of July, there was fireworks. And we took 7 or 8 gallons of water up a 20-foot ladder, really heavy, poured it out on the roof so we'd have good reflections. And then we did some stuff with tubes and prisms. And it made the Oviedo show that year. That was my first time really collaborating that way with Nancy, and also really creating a cool, not in studio piece with the prisms.
Very cool, very good. All right, I have some questions here. What would be a dream location for you to light paint?
We all talk about buying an island off the coast of Great Britain. It's come up a few times. There's a big lottery tonight, almost $1 billion. If I win, I'm going to do that.
Thumbs up.
I think because of the context it would imply, I would love to shoot at Pepsi Center, which is the NHL rink here in Denver, because I want to light paint with the Colorado Avalanche hockey team.
All right.
So it's more about the people, but I would probably do it at that location. I love the stuff that Europe has going on, in that a lot of older history than the States. We've got no light pollution in certain places. We've got good skies. You guys have, tunnels and old World War II things, and, broken down castles to the point where, like, we were talking with Gareth, he doesn't even notice the castles anymore. Oh, there's 5 castles over there. Like, oh my God, it's a castle. So I think
in England,
I'd love to just
UK,
love to explore Europe a little bit and just see what we found.
All right. What is an experience, or what was an experience that you had while you were light painting that you would never forget?
So I mentioned earlier that I was shooting totally alone for the first 3.5 years I light painted. And in a very short period of time, Johnny Griffin came to visit, Eric Perret and Kim Henry passed through Denver and stayed with me for 3 days, and suddenly I finally have met light painters. But shortly after that, I went to, with Nancy, we went to Rome and met up with the Light Painting World Alliance for that shoot, and we had never met anybody who was there, not a person. We talked online, but I remember walking up to the bridge and meeting Sergey, meeting Frodo, and just, I think they were maybe the first two. Lumen Man was there. I think they were the first ones I met in Uli. And suddenly I'm around people who share this passion, and they're down making that giant wolf on the island in the river in Rome, and just feeling like for the first time doing this art, I wasn't just alone anymore. And that same experience has been a catalyst for more trips to Belgium and to Berlin. So it got me off North America for the first time.
That's good, that's good. All right, we are...
Also showing up in Belgium and talking to you with that fox mask on and you not knowing who was under it.
I was like, who the fuck is this dude? He's like, who are they? He's like, what is this now? Anyway,
that was a good surprise.
That was that. We have to say these stories about the time or something. All right. What about, do you have any projects going on at the moment?
I've got a few pieces of software that I'm working on.
Right.
One is called Live Picture Show, and it's for taking pictures, and you've got some software maybe that feeds them to a computer, and it manages doing live slideshows, and you can interject, sponsor ads and do some timing and have it, various settings to make it really good for those sorts of shows. And that's actually free for the public to use, and then it's $50 if you want to, do some of the advanced branding stuff.
Is that like for light painting or in general for photography or something?
Well, it's in general for photography, but there's actually a mode built into Live Picture Show that I use in the studio, where the screen on a monitor is black And as soon as it detects a new picture that comes in, because you're doing a 3-minute shot in the studio maybe, it shows up on the screen so you can see it not just on the back of your camera but big, and then you hit the space bar and it goes black again. So that feature is just for light painters.
Okay, so this is like sort of, you can use it like a view thing to a bigger screen sort of thing. It's like when you're shooting tethered or something like that. Okay.
Yeah, the difference with tethered is you really don't ever really care about the fact that the monitor is light.
Of course.
But we do care about that as light painters. We've got the peaceout.com website for doing mosaics, the Light Monster video software. I'm working on a new project called ULA for location tracking and sharing. When you're a photographer and you're out somewhere and you're like, I need to remember this place and come back, or you show up in Berlin and you're like, where do I shoot? And other people have kind of socially shared this is a good place to go. So that one's coming slowly. I've got a neat project that I can't talk about too much at this point because I've been dragging my toes for months, but it'll be really cool, software-based light painting, but with a bit of a twist. And then at home, I've got a project to do some stuff kind of inspired by the art of Alex Grey. He's got really cool psychedelic lines, colors, really amazing artist. He's done some covers for Tool albums, if you've seen his stuff. And I've got some ideas for putting together some stuff using stencils and multiple rotation tools. So that's my personal art project right now.
Okay, couple of last questions really quick. One that I always ask the people, where do you see light painting going in the future? It's like, very briefly.
Yeah, I think it's going to find more social acceptance as people learn about it. You're going to continue improving our techniques to the point where it's going to seem like magic and people aren't going to believe that it's not made on Photoshop. You're going to see it. The video light painting world is going to expand some as well. You can do some really cool live interactive stuff with Light Monster, Virtual Ink. There's a few other people who are doing performances or interactive things. I think you're going to see some traction that way.
All right. And the last one, what advice would you give to any beginners in light painting?
I would give them a couple pieces of advice. One is learn what you can from people online. We've got a Facebook group, Light Painting Lab, where everybody who takes part there, if you share a picture, you have to tell people how it's done. And people can ask questions, and you can learn from people who came before you. The one advice I would give myself, which I would also give to new light painters, is try stuff. You know, I've been at this 5 years now. I know what works, and of course that's not going to work over there. But then I humor my friend because they want to try it because they're a new light painter, and holy crap, it worked better than I remembered it would. So I remember the spirit of adventure when I started light painting, and I would try things, and I would try things that seemed wacky and maybe why would this work?
Comes out. Yeah.
But I'm not doing as much of that anymore, and I would like to kind of return to that.
True. Thanks a lot, Dan, for the interesting interview, and hopefully we get to change the ways. Like, this was part of my idea originally about this artist interview, that we make it more like a discussion, so you get to know the artist in real life, not just the image. What videos are nice about this kind of stuff, but this, like Skype talks, is somehow more straight out of camera. what we light painters, we have this big discussion about or something. So
that's very true. Can I leave on a parting thought? If you're watching this and you're in Colorado, you can find us at coloradolightpainting.com, and that'll take you to our Facebook group. My work is at hackthelight.com, H-A-C-K, thelight.com. And again, join Light Painting Lab, read Light Painting blog, and take part in the community, please.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Peace out.
Ciao.